Hi there, my name is Toby, and this channel is really about the mind-body connection. I'm doing a lot of physical work and I'm also doing a lot of mental work, a lot of discussion and explanation about chi. And this is again back to the physical work. What I'm working on here is, you could call it a natural martial art or a body efficiency martial art. And what I'm doing here is I call the neutral stance. So this is a very interesting stance. It looks very primitive, but it's a most efficient position for your spine. It's a neutral spine. The hips and the shoulders are back a little bit, and this allows a greater freedom of movement. And if from this neutral position, trying to maintain a neutral spine, a natural S-curve, you see I'm twisting around left and right. So I'm calling this wild man kung fu because this looks very much like a wild man. It's very primitive. And I'm going to discuss this martial art, and in particular today I'm working on the turning kick. So we're going to also narrow it down to one particular technique, as well as talking about this in general. But the turning kick is probably the most practical, most useful kick, the most efficient kick. You can generate a lot of power in the turning kick, and it's quite easy to do. It's quite efficient, it's quite fast. So it's not the fastest kick, and it's probably not the most powerful kick, but I would say it's the best all-round kick. It's the most useful kick once you've got the hang of it. And here you can see I'm building it up from the core. I'm building it up from the neutral stance, just very slowly starting to create twist and counter twist in my spine. Now the arms are up and out a bit as a counterbalance, and I'll leave the links below to a more detailed discussion on the neutral stance. But you see the arms have got to be bent as well. Everything is about its mid position. Knees and arms are bent halfway, so this is very close to the neutral stance. I'm not making full extensions and I'm not collapsing them. I'm just trying to hold everything as close to possible to this neutral stance and move from there. So you see I'm skipping around into a turning kick position, but I'm skipping the whole body structure around. And you'll see there's a counter twist in the spine. The shoulders go one way, the hips go the opposite way, and this allows me to balance and throw out the leg without falling over and stopping in mid-air. Now if I'm hitting something with the turning kick, then that will stop me as well. But here I'm just kicking in mid-air, so I need a counter twist to balance. So this is all about really feeling the internal dynamics. I'm not worried about the precision of the kick. I'm not worried about the speed or the power of the kick. That will all come in time. This is quite easy. We can all do this. Once you get the hang of the neutral stance, you just practice moving around in different ways, staying quite close to the neutral stance. So this is why I call it wild man kung fu. I've got a sort of wild man posture, and I'm just throwing my legs out. So again, experienced martial artists might also look at this and say, this is more like a beginner doing it, because you see a beginner, they don't turn their body properly, they just sort of shuffle around like this with it, and they don't loosen up the leg and let it go out. So this, you could say, is like a beginner doing the turning kick. I'm not even turning completely. See, it doesn't even matter the kick is going upwards. None of that matters. All I'm trying to do is feel a motion from the neutral stance outwards. And I'm trying to get that feeling easier and easier, smoother and smoother. And as I get the feeling of it, then all I have to do is flick out the second part, flick out from the knee down, and what you get is a little whip. So the turning kick becomes a whip at the end, and here you can see I'm doing a low turning kick, but whipping. Well, actually now I'm doing a front kick to show it. So I'm just kicking the leg up, but pulling the hip backwards at the same time. So the leg is loose and it creates a whip down to the toes. So whipping is a very efficient method of striking. We can create whip punches, and we can also create whip kicks. And if you look at Muay Thai, again they have dead leg kicking, whip kicking, and the other one is savate, the French kickboxing, very elaborate, very clever kicking. Based on a whip. They call it la fuente, is the turning kick. So these are worth looking into. So you can say what I'm doing here is a combination of kung fu, savate, and Muay Thai, but it's all done in my own way with a wild man body. So I'm doing this with a neutral stance. And again, I'm starting here hitting the bag, but I'm not really bothered about hitting it. I'm just trying to get the feeling of shifting my whole body weight around in this neutral position. So you look at the supporting leg, it skips round. I'm skipping around on the supporting foot, letting it turn round. And as I turn around, I'm trying to get the neutral stance in the mid-air, when my leg lands on the bag. So I'm using the twist of my whole body to throw my hip out. And then the leg lands in a relaxed fashion. I'm just dropping the leg at the end of the twist onto the bag. And again, I'm not working on power, not working on speed, I'm working on body flow. freedom of movement, feeling the flow through my body structure. And this we can all do straight away, even if you're a total beginner in martial arts. You see, you can study the turning kick. Lots of people doing turning kick by breaking it down step by step. You can do all that, but what I'm doing here is not really breaking down the kick. I'm breaking down the kick into one simple movement from your whole body structure. That is the neutral stance, and the neutral stance can be leaning forward or upright, but you see when you kick you end up levering forward from the hips a bit, and I'm using that whole structure and just skipping around with that whole structure. And once you've got the feeling of that, then you can allow the leg, the knee down to the foot to whip out at the end. So the structure, you spin around with the structure, using the counter twist in the neutral spine. You see I'm not compromising or hunching the spine. This is the tricky bit. Even when I throw the leg out, I'm still leaning, arching slightly backwards, pivoting on a neutral spine. So it's a very simple, easy little movement to practice. The arms, I'm not worried about fighting stance in the arms. I'm just using the arms as a counterbalance, but holding the hands up at about the shoulder level. This is the most neutral position for the arms, and the shoulders and the rib cage are up and back a little bit. So I've got a nice tall stretch in the spine. I've got to hold the belly pulled in, so there's always a tension in the waist, and I'm using the obliques and the waistline to create a counter twist, and this allows me to throw out the hips into this turning kick. But it's about skipping round. I'm skipping round on the supporting leg into this neutral stance, and as I skip round, this creates the power to throw out the turning kick. And as you get the feeling of this, you feel it. You've just got to feel this is easier and easier. One nice smooth fluid movement skips you round, and the leg drops onto the bag. Now I'm doing something a bit more like Muay Thai. So here they throw out a dead leg. So I'm rotating the hip, and the whole leg is relaxed, and I'm just whipping the leg out. You can also look at this as a football kick. Footballers can kick very, very powerful because they're whipping the leg down, and they whip the leg down to kick the ball. And it's a nice fluid movement. It's a kinetic chain, a flow from the hips down the knee to the ankle to the foot. And a kinetic chain as a whip is an acceleration. It accelerates to the end. So again, don't think of this as practicality. I'm not doing practical fighting here. I'm doing body dynamics. I'm just trying to find the most efficient way to use my body to throw out a turning kick. And once I got the feeling of how this works, then I can gradually improve the actual details of the kick. I can get a more practical fighting stance. I can get a more precise kick. I can do all different variations of the kick, but that all builds up from this one little basic simple movement, this wild man kung fu. I've got to learn how to hold this neutral stance. It's the most efficient body position for your body to be in. It allows your spine to be in its neutral position, which can move in all directions. When I compromise or when I change this position, I'm moving my body into an extended position, and it can only go so far. So I've got to always know to spring back to this neutral position so that I can always move in another way. I've got to always be free to move in martial arts. Always spring back to the midpoint so I can move again to something else. And always flow. Actually, I flow from one move to the other move. And if I can keep this position quite close to the neutral stance, everything gets easier. Now I'm doing some punching, but it's the same business. You see the neutral stance, it's exactly the same, the hips and the shoulders. I've got to keep a neutral spine, the arms are bent out 90 degrees, and I'm just twisting from the spine. Again, don't think of this as practical fighting. This is body dynamics. I'm just trying to feel how the spine moves, how I can control the spine. I'm changing the angle slightly, but trying to keep a neutral spine, and I'm using the obliques, the twist from the hips, to power out the shoulders and the rib cage, and I'm just holding the hands fairly not quite rigid, but a little bit rigid so that they flow outwards. So then again, this is about the neutral stance, twisting left and right to throw out the arms, and as I get the hang of that, then I can improve that punch. I can make it more detailed. I can bring it closer to my body. I can change the angle. I can make it more practical. At the moment, this is not practical fighting. This is body dynamics. I'm just trying to feel the neutral stance and move left and right by twisting the spine and creating a counter twist in the spine between my hips and the shoulders. So you see, if I'm kicking, then I create the twist in my shoulders, it goes to the hips. Now if I'm punching, I create the twist in the hips and take it to the shoulders. And now I'm doing just a forward jab, so this is another interesting one. But again, it's about the structure. I'm just trying to hold a straight, strong structure through the spine, and you can see I'm pushing the bag quite strong. It's not a very heavy bag, it's about 50 kilos, it's a medium bag, but it's enough that you could hurt your wrist if you do this wrong. So this is more about the structure. I'm just trying to feel the alignment from the back hip going out to the hand. And I'll leave the links below to some other videos on punching and how this works. But basically in this video I want to introduce this wild man kung fu. The idea is I'm trying to keep this sort of wild body posture, the neutral stance. It's very primitive, very primal, shoulders up and back, spine in a neutral position, and even leaning slightly forward, but it's levering forward at the waist. You see, at the moment this is a striking, but you will also have wrestling, and the neutral stance will apply to wrestling also, and I'm going to talk about that in time. But for now this is just striking, so this is a more upright vertical neutral stance. But here you can see I'm also levering forward. I'm leaning forward, but I'm leaning forward from the hips. I'm not hunching the spine. Well, actually you can hunch the spine to get even more power, but you need to understand this basic neutral position of the spine first. So to sum up this idea, this natural martial art, this wild man kung fu, it is based on the neutral stance, the natural position of your spine in a natural backwards S curve. The rib cage is moving, the rib cage is mobile, lifted up, the shoulders go up and back because the mid position of your shoulders is up and back a bit. Gravity makes them pull down and forward, and then you start hunching forward. So we want to readdress that, pull the shoulders up and back. So even here I'm pushing out forward with the shoulder. I'm actually still also pulling the shoulder back at the end. This allows me to lock the structure. I'm locking the structure when I'm doing this. It's more like pushing. I'm pushing with the jab from my structure. So this is what I call structural isometrics. But this all builds up still from the neutral stance. You've got to understand this neutral position, and then you can start extending away from it and springing back to it. And the turning kick is the simplest kick to practice this neutral stance, this twisting left and right, and it's the same with the punch. This sort of twisting punch is the basic simple punch to learn from this twisting right, left and right from the spine. But what I'm doing here is the jab. Again, this is slightly different, but it's still based on the alignment of the spine. And once more back to the turning kick. So you can see here, counter twist, the shoulders twist a little bit first, and then the hips twist after. So from this twist, this winding up of the spine, I wind up the spine and then allow the spine to unwind, and as it unwinds it throws out the turning kick. But I'm just really placing my shin bone onto the bag. I'm using the whole body movement to twist and turn. I've got to rotate the hip, turn to the side. This will allow me to create the turning kick. And the more mobile I get, the more flexible I get. I can go higher, so I'm going a bit higher now. And I can turn around a bit more if I turn over, so the kick will go downwards at the end. Again, that has more power. At the moment, these kicks are going horizontal or upwards a little bit. So again, I do know a strict turning kick in most martial arts will be going horizontal or down. But it doesn't matter to me. You see, I can do an upwards kick, I can do a kick in any angle once I get the hang of this neutral stance. This is a side kick. So again, I've got the neutral stance, or everything is slightly bent, natural spine, and I'm standing side on. Now, with one leg in the air, again, this is a bit like this is itself is the neutral stance. Both legs are bent, I'm levering forward, but one leg is in the air on the bag, and one leg is on the floor. It's the same stance, the same structure, and then I just expand that structure outwards, which is pushing into the kick. This is the side kick. You see, I'm doing it slowly so you can see I push the supporting leg into the ground from the hip, and then I push the kicking leg into the bag from the hip. So it goes from the supporting leg through the hips to the other leg, the kicking leg. But it's all very similar, all very close to this natural neutral stance, this wild man posture. So all this, I'm just calling it wild man kung fu. And it makes it very simple, very easy. You don't have to worry too much about the details. The only thing you've got to work on is this neutral position and trying to feel the control of your spine, your hips and your shoulders. And always spring back to as close to the neutral position as you can. And then all you've got to do is start creating movements from this position. So the turning kick, the side kick, these punching, these boxing style punches, these are all very slight changes away from the neutral stance. And as you get the hang of that, then you can do more and more elaborate movements further and further away, and this starts to look like more traditional martial arts or MMA fighting. You do a lot of complex movements in MMA fighting. But again, this in itself is not fighting. You've got to practice actual combat if you want to know how to fight. You've got to go and do some MMA. It's the best, fastest way of fighting now. If you find yourself a good MMA class, go on and get fighting. But this is body dynamics, what I'm trying to teach you here, share with you here. This is my own training, so I'm saying I'm teaching it, but I'm the only one really doing this. This is my own training, and I'm trying to share it with you because I've done this for a long time, and I've always been interested in how to improve. And always, you can improve your efficiency, always. Every time you train, you get better and better. I'm never just repeating what I'm doing. I'm always trying to improve upon what I'm doing. And this is to do with feeling the internal body dynamics. So even though I've done maybe 50, 100 kicks on this video, no two kicks are really the same. And I'm continuously aware of what I'm doing, and one kick, oh well, that was no good, and then the next kick might, oh, that's a bit better. So I'm trying to feel the flow, feel the dynamics in my body, and that is personal. That's personal to me, and that will be personal to you. See, my focus is just feeling. I'm feeling what's going on inside my body and trying to improve that. And if I can improve that, the power improves and the speed improves, but I'm not really doing much more work. You see, what I'm doing here, quite hard punches, but they're not much work to me. I'm not really expending much effort. The effort is in trying to hold the structure. And here I'm doing upright uppercut, but I'm just twisting left and right from the spine, holding the neutral stance, pivoting on a vertical spine, and it's quite powerful. You see, the bag is not allowed to swing back. And I'm only punching it, I'm not pushing it, so every impact is on the bag, pushing it away and holding it away. So the only way I could do that without working too hard is if my structure is good, if the bones are held just right and the strike comes through the structure. Okay, I hope this was made sense. This is a little introduction to this natural martial art, or wild man kung fu, and mostly a talk about the turning kick. But do leave any questions in the comments below. I will get back to you, and I'm going to start a series talking about this martial art step by step, so I can explain this to you from the very beginning. Okay, check out these other videos here, and I look forward to seeing you next time.